using financial and electronic leverage. He also loves the word leverage, right? Creating wins for every participant, from the business owners to their customers, vendors, investors, and employees. Creating and sustaining massive business growth for all, including the communities that harbor them. So this is one pretty human being. So let's all just stand and let's give Gordon a hand and welcome.
Thank you. First of all, I think it's still morning, so let me say good morning. Thank you. This is the first time I've addressed a group. I didn't have to say that twice in order to get everybody's attention. Thank you very much for that. I'd like to make this next couple of hours that we're going to spend together as special as I can make it. And I want to feel very connected to you so that over the next 2 or 3 days, it's not just a talk. It's me getting to know you, understand you, know what your values are, what you're trying to accomplish with your business, and seeing how I, with the experience base that I have and even the connections that I have, how can I help you? How can I help you achieve something? I'd like you to just take a quick look at this up here. Aside from the fact that's really me, I actually really look like that too, but this is a new thing. I'm having some fun with it, so just bear with me. I start out everything I do with the word vision, because in business it all starts with a vision. I don't know any successful business that didn't start with somebody who had this incredible idea and over time honed it down to a set of specific tasks that they would accomplish, that they would do to accomplish this vision. And you're going to see the word vision in all 3 of the times that I address you. And it's key to the whole development of a business, because that vision is what you're going to enroll everyone in, from your employees to your customers to your investors to your lenders to your suppliers. Everybody is going to learn to connect with your vision and want to support that vision because your vision is so outstanding and produces so much value for everyone. So if you just think of the word vision, it's the essence of what you are as an entrepreneur. In fact, my definition of an entrepreneur is not the standard one. An entrepreneur is a person with a vision. Starts right there. Person with a vision who orchestrates the time, talent, and resources of other people to make their vision real. You're not the investor. You're not supposed to come up with your own money, believe it or not. Okay? Your job is to create the vision and to motivate the people who have everything you need to support you in the development of that vision. And so a lot of times people think, if I don't have money, how can I be an entrepreneur? You don't need money to be an entrepreneur. You need a brain, okay? And you need to know how to think. You need to know how money works. You need to know how to motivate other people to get behind you and support you. And to do that, you need to tap into their values and what they want to accomplish with their life, what's important to them. One of the corollaries of business, to me, is that people out there have everything you want. Anything you'd ever want to build your business is already out there. And the people who have it will give it to you if your business gives them what they want. It's the basic law of mutual exchange. And so again, everything that you're going to hear from me is, first, know the motivations of everybody whose help you need to put your business together. Know what it is they want to happen. And then your job as the entrepreneur is to structure your business so that every single thing that everyone needs to get from your business, to be your investor, to be your employee, to be your customer, to be your supplier, is going to come from your business. And they're going to become such a raving fan of yours because of what your business delivers to them that they're going to support you with anything and everything that you need. So if you think of yourself in that way, think of yourself as that entrepreneur who orchestrates the time, talent, and resources of other people, and think of yourself as that person who takes the time to learn what everybody wants to get from your vision, and then the time to structure into it so that it delivers to them what they need and what they really want. Now, when you've done that, nothing is wasted. So many times people give stuff away thinking it's what the other person wants. And it didn't really motivate them, and they gave it away for nothing. Don't do that, okay? Your job is to find out what people want, give them that, and give them only that, because you're going to have to conserve those resources to make sure there are enough there to give everybody what they want. And the second item that I just want to say before I start all this, business is not a zero-sum game. You as an entrepreneur are a value adder, okay? You take something that already exists in some way. You've identified a challenge or a problem that this vision is going to solve. And when you've completed, that structure is going to be capable of delivering new value that did not exist before. That's what makes entrepreneurs so special. That's what makes them the driving force. That's what makes you the driving force behind your community, behind the economics of the community in which you live. You're a rare breed. How many millions and millions of people are there on the planet, and only a handful are really and truly entrepreneurial, and yet they drive employment, they drive new goods and services, they drive new ideas, they really create the real progress that we all have. And if they've done a really good job, some big business that didn't invent anything came along and bought them up because they did such a good job, okay? But it's not the big companies that really create the new ideas and the fresh thinking. It has to come from the entrepreneurial community. So you're very special. Please understand that about yourself. All right, enough of that. Let's talk about how we get into business. Let's talk about how it is that if we don't have a lot of cash, how many people have more cash than they need? Let me just see a show of hands. More cash than you need. How many? Wow, I see 2 or 3 hands up in the room. I need to visit you afterwards because I have some ideas for that. But in all seriousness, most people who become entrepreneurs are heavy in vision and light in cash. So let's talk about how we can start putting things together where we don't need big chunks of money. I'm going to start out by sharing a couple of stories with you today. And if I can, I'm going to take my jacket off because I'm going to get really serious here. And I like the whistles, but I'm a little old for those. All right. Anyway, and another thing I'm going to do in a few minutes is I'm going to come down off the stage, and I'm going to get there with you. Okay, now why am I going to do that? Because I don't want to talk at you. I want to talk with you in a way that everyone here can leave this session fully understanding what they need to know to make everything I'm going to talk about work for you. Okay? But essentially what I want to do is to start out with just a little bit of an explanation of my first business that I bought. And you need to know where I was coming from because it wasn't a great place. People tend to look at me now and say, Gordon, you know all this stuff. You have all these contacts. You have all this capital. And you can do anything. Yeah, I can now. I can do a lot of things now that I couldn't do when I was younger. But I have very good memories of how I started out and how broke I was and how young I was and how inexperienced I was. And I had a vision, though, that I didn't want to be that all my life, right? Okay, I wanted to amount to something, as they say. And I wanted to be in business. And I didn't even know what business I wanted to be in. I was still at that age where you're groping in the wilderness. What am I? Who am I? Where am I going in life? Oh, poor me. I went through all the things. Like, how am I going to do anything? I don't have any cash. Don't even have good credit. Real young, no experience. Okay, how am I going to do this? As I'm in that place, there was one thing that sort of stood out for me. It was a hobby that I had that I loved. It was motorcycling. And I had friends. We used to get on our bikes and ride up the trails in the mountains near Lake George, New York, which is where I grew up. And one day when we were riding up there, one of my friends turns to me and he says, hey, Gordon, I work for this parts manufacturing company. The owner's looking to retire and he's got the business up for sale. And we started joking around. Wouldn't it be neat if we bought the company? After joking around about it for a while, I was saying to myself, why not? Let's go talk to him. What do we got to lose, right? My friend made an appointment for he and I to talk to the owner of the business. And we went in and we met him. And he's talking to me like I really have the capacity to buy his business. And I don't. At least I don't think I do. But anyway, he takes us on a tour of the facilities. We ask him some questions. And finally, we come back to his office and we ask him the critical question, how much you want for the business, right? And now, I'm going to give you a number, okay? You got to put your heads back in 1970. Okay? $1 was worth a lot more than it was then than it is now. Anyway, he says 500,000. Now that's 5 million today, just to let you know. Okay? And to me, I heard 500,000 and I didn't think of that as money. I thought of that as a telephone number. But anyway, I then asked him the next critical question, which is, how do you want that? Is there a certain amount you want down? He says, no, I want all cash. That would have ended almost anyone's conversation in my case. And it started to end the conversation, and my friend and I thanked him for his time. We got up, we were ready to leave the room, and as I get to the door, I actually turned around, and I said to him, look, if I would like to give a week or two to think about this, and if I come back to you with an offer, would you be willing to look at it? And he said, yeah. I went back to I'm getting ready to go back to my home, and as we go through, the door closes behind us, and I hear my friend, and he says, boy, am I glad that's over. He didn't want any part of this. He would have nothing to do with this. He says, Gordon, you want to come back and give him an offer, you're on your own. Okay, I'm out of this. So now I'm on my own. Anyway, I started doing a little research, and I found out that most businesses aren't sold for cash. They're sold with a down payment that could equal anywhere from 25% to 65 or 70% of the business, but there's almost always a seller take back. There's always a certain amount that they take back as a note payable over the next, say, 5 to 10 years, whatever it is that you get with them. So anyway, I start going through these things, and I said, look, I could probably give them some down, and then I don't have to give them the whole thing, but I don't have the down payment. So where could that come from? I'm doing more research. And then I find out that there are these lenders out there that are called asset-based lenders. And they're different than a bank because they don't make their loan on the strength of the cash flow like a bank does. The bank wants to see that the cash flow is going to be there to repay the loan. These guys don't worry about that. And they do, but not really. As long as the collateral behind the loan can be liquidated for enough to pay their loan back, they don't care what happens because they know their way out is to liquidate the collateral. I found out that there were lenders out there that would loan me between 65% and 80% of the value of certain assets in the business. And as business people, you all should know what those assets are. They can be things like machinery and equipment. They can be inventory. They can be accounts receivable. They can be a whole host of things. They can even be purchase orders, if you know how to finance a purchase order. There are ways to finance almost anything that comes in and out of a business. But anyway, I found a lender who was willing to loan me 80% of the value of the machinery and equipment and the accounts receivable. And I did a quick calculation, and I figured out that I can come up with somewhere in the neighborhood of around 50% by just borrowing that money. And the number, I think, was, in fact, I'm going to go through the numbers with you in a moment so that you can actually see how numbers actually work. But the key to it was I now knew that I could find a way, once I owned the business, to give that seller his cash down payments, provided he's willing to take back a note for some portion of the premium, some portion of the result. Now, what I want to do here, and I'm going to step down here for just a moment, and let me see if I got the right slides behind this. Okay, yeah, I do. So I'm going to come down here for a moment so I can look there and see what you're seeing. So if I'm blocking anybody or in your way, let me know, and I'll gladly step to the side. All right, the first 3 months, I started negotiating with the seller. And why is that important? It's important because how many people here think of buying a business as a financial transaction, that it's primarily a financial transaction? Raise your hand, and it's okay. That's a good thing to think. A lot of money is going to change hands. Not a lot of people didn't raise your hand. I want to congratulate you for that. And for those who did raise your hand, it's perfectly normal to think of it that way. However, what I've learned then and what I've learned thousands of times since, long before a purchase of a business ever becomes a financial transaction and everything, people start talking about the money and the numbers, it is first and foremost a psychological transaction. First and foremost, a psychological transaction. Because at the end of the day, if the seller doesn't like you, trust you, and respect you, he will not do the deal with you. Okay? Oh, fuck you. He will not do the deal with you. Because what is he selling you? Is he selling you some old rag doll or some used car? No, he's selling his child that he has nurtured from infancy, where he started in his garage, that he sweated and toiled over, that's paid his family's bills for all these years and provided him with financial security. And his personal attachment or her personal attachment to that business is ironclad. They're totally attached to that business. And it's not like anything else that ever gets sold. And so the whole idea when you're talking to the seller about selling his business is you don't start out by talking numbers. You don't start out by talking dollars. You start out by talking, John, how'd you get started in this business? And you listen, okay? And then you let him tell you about how he gets started. He'll talk for hours. Nobody's ever asked him that question before, okay? And that's the beginning of building a cosmic bond with that seller. All of a sudden he says, wow, this guy's really interested in my business. He's interested in me. He's interested in how this all came about. And all during the negotiation sessions, I'm drawing commonalities between them and me so that they begin to see me. In this case, it was an older guy. He began to see me as himself when he was a kid. And he, from that moment, literally took me under his wing. And he decided he wanted me to own that business. And he wanted to be the person who would train me to run that business. And he wanted to be the person who could be proud of what was going to happen to his business after he sold it. He wanted to know that his customers were going to be well taken care of, that his employees would be fairly treated, okay? And that his suppliers would be as good to do business with me as they were with him. And he wanted that business to succeed once I took it over. So that's building that cosmic bond is an essential part of the process. And I'm emphasizing it more in this room than I would normally because here everybody has a fair amount of heart that I don't find everywhere. And I compliment Doria with that because she has a way of attracting around her extraordinary people. And that's one of the reasons that I want to take this time. But during this time, we got to know each other, like each other, and respect each other. And more importantly, we got to trust each other. So that way, when it comes time for him to think about the fact that I'm going to owe him some money for a fairly long period of time, he's okay about that, okay? So that's an important part of the process. So here was our purchase price, $500,000. And obviously, he agreed to flexible terms. He agreed he would take $150,000 cash down, plus a note for $350,000 payable over 15 years. Now, he didn't have to want to wait 15 years for the money, but he agreed that with that amortization schedule, I could easily meet the payments. But in 6 to 7 years at the most, he wanted a balloon payment that would fully pay it off so he'd be done with the sale. And I knew that the note could be paid out over time from the earnings, and I'd have profit left over. Okay, what I didn't know is, where am I going to get the $150,000? Okay, it's like buying a car, and I already explained this. There are asset-based lenders that I knew I could go to, and I'm probably ahead of myself here, so let me maybe stream through some of these. So this is where we would take, I looked at what we could use as collateral, okay, and the $300,000 worth of machinery that he had and the accounts receivable would easily produce about $240,000 of cash after I owned the company. So now my problem is $150,000 of cash to close the deal that I don't have. But you probably realize that I'm halfway home right now because I know where the money can come from, okay? I just don't have it, but I know where it's sitting, okay? And that's an important part of the process. I don't have it, and I did a little more research, and I found that I could go to a bank, and at that time I could get something called a swing loan. Some people call it bridge financing. Now, the banker, believe me, when I go through this, he did not want to loan me $150,000. He took one look at my credit rating and one look at my youth and my inexperience, and his comment was, and some things in life you never forget, right? Never forget them. So I'm sitting there in front of this banker, Bank of America, and he's this old school banker, right? And I'm sitting there in the chair right right in front of him, and I'm explaining my grand plan. I'm going to leverage this assets, and I'm going to pay the seller a down payment, and then he's going to give me a note. I'm going to go through the whole thing with him. And then I tell him I want to borrow $150,000 so that I can close the sale. And he turns to me and he says, "Now, son." And I remember looking over the top of his horn-rimmed glasses, like, "Now, son, you don't seriously think we could loan you $150,000? Why, you don't have any kind of credit rating." Anyway, I won't tell you his whole story. It was just terrible to sit there and listen. But I knew he was going to say that. The research I did told me he was going to say that because they just don't look at loans the same way I was looking at the loan. So I had to make him some incredible promises in an incredible way to get him to loan me $150,000. I'm going to show you what I did. Okay. So my goal was to borrow $150,000, give it to the seller, make the business mine, leverage the assets in the business for the $240,000, and then repay the bank their $150,000. So the banker could see it. He could see what I was going to do. Just couldn't do it because I didn't have a credit rating. Okay, so here's what I did. All right, so here's your purchase price. All right, I didn't realize this thing was self-motivated here. All right, $500,000 purchase price. There are the numbers. They're pretty straightforward. Everybody's pretty much got them in your head already. And I'm going to have $90,000 left over when this is all done. All right, so what do I do? All right, I get a little ahead of myself here sometimes. All right, here's what I did. I told them, "Listen, I understand you don't think I have the credit rating, but I want to make this loan so attractive for you, so risk-free to you that you can only say yes." And he said, "How are you going to do that?" I said, "First of all, I'm going to pay you a full month's interest on your one-day loan to me. Don't worry about this few dollars that you thought you were going to make on this loan. You're going to make a lot more. You're going to get a full month's interest, and the money is actually never going to leave your bank. And the loan's going to get paid off the instant that it's made. That same instant, it's going to get paid off. And at that same instant, I become your depositor here at the bank with an extra $90,000 sitting in my account, which you get to loan out to other people and make money on my money." Now, does everybody here know how a bank makes money on your money? Loan multiplier, every dollar you put in a primary deposit literally enables them to loan out 7 times that amount. 7 times, okay? And now, again, I'm not sure here where you're from, but in the United States, okay, there's this thing called the Fed Reserve, the central bank. And they're the ones who make these very low interest rate loans based on what the deposits are in the bank. They'll make up to 7 times that amount for them to loan out to other people. With that method of doing it, they're taking my money, and then that enables them to borrow 6 times that amount at a very low interest rate, loan that out to other customers, and that all of that they make in addition to what they pay is profit that they're making because I put $90,000 in the bank. So I went over that with him, right? It's important you know this because you have to let your banker know you know how they make money, okay? And you know how to be a good customer for them because what do you want to be true for them? You want them to win. Everybody is going to win when they do what you need them to do in your business. All right, so he ran for the loan forms, and here's what we did. Now, back in 1969, 70, we weren't as sophisticated then as we are today. So what I'm showing you actually happened. We actually had 2 rooms set up at the bank. Now, in today, we don't do that. It's all done in the trust department of the bank through the technique I'm going to show you, double escrows, and it's just all the escrows closed together. Everybody gets their money, and everybody's happy. Okay, but we actually had it set up in the 2 rooms, and I'm going through this because I want you to see it. This really helps you see the mechanics of what happened. Okay, so sitting in room A was the seller, there's me, the buyer, and there's the banker. The banker hands me a cashier's check for $100 and whatever $1,000 it is up there. Let me make sure that's the right number. $150,000, that's the right number. All right, so I give it to the seller. The moment the seller's hand touches that money, because the deals are all signed, everything's all done, he takes the money, deal done. Right? I am now the owner of that business. And as I'm taking the money there, over in room B was an officer of Topa Thrift and Loan, which was the asset-based lender that I went to set up the asset-based loan. And all the documents are signed in that room that I signed before I went into the other room, and I signed them all as if I was the real owner of the business, right? My hand lets go of the check. I am the owner of the business, so all those documents are signed now by the legal owner of the business. And so the Bank of America person exchanges with the asset-based lender the paperwork. The asset-based lender gives to the banker the $240-something thousand or whatever I'm supposed to get, puts it with the teller, okay, teller's window, deposits in my account, then immediately debits my account $90,000 to pay back the loan. Now, did I ever touch the money? No. Does the banker have any question he's going to get his money back? Who's doing all this? The banker is. So that's part of the key, by the way. When you want to get something done, you put the control in the hands of the person putting up the money. Okay? Because if you're handling everything and they got to wonder what you're doing with it, that's a big risk factor for them. But if you leave it and structure it so that they're handling all the money transactions, now they don't worry about it because they know the money's in their hands, so they're comfortable. You got to make people comfortable. Okay? So the $150,000 goes into my account. We pay the banker off the $90,000. I'm sorry, the $150,000, and I'm left with $90,000 sitting in my checking account. So that's the mechanics by which it happened. Now today, you set up a double escrow right at the trust department of the bank. Banker handles everything. Everybody trusts the bank trust department, and the lender's putting their money in, the signed agreements are all in there, everything's in there, and then when all the documents are signed and the money is there, ready to go with the asset-based lender, all the escrows close, everybody gets their money, and everybody's happy. That's the way that it was done. Okay, so I'm going to speed through some of this because you've got it, okay? An asset-based loan that took effect immediately upon my ownership of the business, bank swing loan, proceeds to be paid directly to the seller for the down payment. These activates the asset-based loan, portion of the proceeds pays off the swing loan. With money left over, double escrow makes the swing loan risk-free to the bank, okay? Now, you know I spent a few sleepless nights thinking all that up, right? Okay, but it was worth it. All right, essentially that's the transaction. So you have escrow 1, escrow 2, and all the money changes hands. I think everybody's got a good picture of that now. Okay, so what we know is an asset-based loan, a swing loan connected by a double escrow, enables us to use the assets of the business to create the cash for the down payment to the seller. So between that form and some seller financing, now you know you can buy a business and it's only its own assets that made it possible, its own assets and cash flow. That's the term a fully leveraged buyout. That's where the term fully leveraged buyout comes from. And when you're done with this, and once you've done one, you think you've discovered entrepreneur heaven, because now you can expand any business. You can do any form of acquisition because you know how to do it. You can start to build a business without money that can do all the things you want to do. But in the past, you had to start from scratch. You had to save your money. You had to get somebody to believe in you. You had to get somebody to invest money in you. You have to do all this stuff. Here's a set of steps that you can follow that can put you in a business. Now, let's say the business is not the business you want, but it's aligned with it. It's close. It's something that could be moved a little bit in its business model to do what you want to do. In fact, maybe it's an old retiring person's business that's really old school, and they've never modified the business to be in touch with the new technologies. And so there's incredible profit opportunities in that business that the old owner was just a little too old school, like me, to take advantage of, okay? So here's an opportunity for you to take over these businesses. And I will tell you, I may have to another slide on this, but sometimes things come up where I have to tell you before the slide comes up. There are $12 trillion worth of businesses out there that are owned by business boomers that will be retiring in the next 10 years. They have to get sold. People are going to buy them, or they're going to get liquidated in some cases because there is no buyer, okay? So you've got all of these businesses hitting the marketplace. Some of them are great. They've already been tuned to the new economy, and they're doing great. Others haven't been tuned to the new economy, so they're stagnating, but the customer base is there, the product lines are there, everything's there. They just don't understand the internet. They don't know how to market through the internet. So you can take your skill sets, add them to that business, and end up with something phenomenal that you don't pay top dollar for. And in fact, you're able to use the assets and the cash flow of the business to cover every dollar you have to come up with to do that. Now, people say to me, come on, Gordon, don't you need some money for out-of-pocket expenses? Do you have to pay a lawyer once in a while? Do you have to pay people before the deal closes? I make all my deals structured on the completion of the deal. And the reason I can do that is because I don't ask the lawyer to help me when I first sign the business. I bring an agreement to the lawyer that's already done. When a deal's ready to close and I said, review this, let me know if I'm making any big mistakes or I'm overlooking anything. And if there's anything that you let me know, we'll fix it. Okay, now his time is minimal. It's very close to the closing, and almost invariably they will defer their fee and make it contingent upon the closing because they see you're a professional, you brought it to them this far, and they can make a lot of money for the time that they spent because you pay them more than their usual fee for the amount of time that they're going to spend. And again, if the attorney is time-driven and he likes working for hours, trading hours for dollars, you make him happy. You give him a way to trade a few of his hours for way more dollars than he would have before, and you structure it so you minimize his risk and the time which it's going to take him to collect his money. So that's what I mean about thinking everything through to the point where you know how to make your deal a win for everybody that's going to come in touch with it, everybody whose help you're going to need, everybody whose support you're going to need in the process. All right. And again, the reason I didn't need a good credit rating is we set it up so the bank would have no risk. And we put the risk with a lender who was willing to make his loan on the strength of the collateral. They knew the collateral was good, they made the loan, they're happy. Okay, now I'm going to come to a different part of this. We all know how I bought the business, but it doesn't end here. Okay, now I got a business, okay, and I got to add value. I have to add value. You know why I have to add value? Because in everything I just showed you, that was a zero-sum game. In other words, the business I bought justified its purchase price, and now as it makes money, it's going to pay for that purchase price. It's not going to give a lot to me. It's going to be paying a lot of debt. Okay? Yeah, maybe I can step into the owner's shoes and make a salary on the business and all of that kind of stuff. But if I don't add value, then I'm going to be treading a lot of water here as all the money comes in and I'm shoveling it all back out to pay off all of the acquisition debt that I just incurred. So it's imperative that I make the business more valuable. It took me a little while. Remember, I'm young. This is my first rodeo, okay? I didn't have the grand plan yet. I did work hard in that business, and I found that working there for really 2 years, I was only able to increase the business 25%. In other words, 10% the first year, 15% the second year, something like that. And now, after working my butt off for 2 years, I added, let's say the business is doing $1 million a year in sales, okay? I only added another $250,000 in sales. And I woke up one morning, and it dawned on me, when I had no experience, no money, I bought a business that was doing $1 million a year in sales, and I did it with no cash. And then I spent the next 2 years working my butt off. I had now some cash. I had good credit, which I didn't have before. I had all the right things, and yet I'm still working my butt off, and all I added was 25% to the sales. And other people were telling me, hey, Gordon, you're doing great. You increased the business 25%. I said, but wait a minute, I'm working my butt off. And that's what triggered it. If I hadn't had other people telling me how great I was doing, I would not have thought of this. Okay? I'm thinking to myself, okay, I already know what to do to grow this business because, you see, I've already done it. There are competitors out there that I can buy. I can buy them the same way I bought this business. I can buy them in 3 to 6 months, and I can double my sales in 3 to 6 months instead of taking another 2 years to build them 20%. And that's what I did. So I went out and bought my largest competitor, who was in California also, and there were only 3 businesses like mine. Let me tell you the product I made. It made a single product called a motorcycle front-end fork tube. Okay, now everybody here knows what a motorcycle is, right? Okay, you got the handlebars, right? And then something connects those handlebars to the wheel, right? And then when you turn the handlebars, there's these 2 fork tubes that come down. They're hydraulic. They compress as the hip bumps in the road, and they're precision part, and that's the front-end fork tube. Okay. There were only 3 aftermarket fork tube manufacturers in the United States at this time. I had just bought one of them. They were all around the same size. I had one competitor in California, and then there was another one who manufactured on the East Coast. Now, again, I tend to over-explain things, so please bear with me. If you want to just keep your motorcycle the same as you bought it from the manufacturer, if something happens to your front-end fork tube, you're in an accident, okay, and then they bend. You got to replace them. So if it's a standard configuration, you just go to the original equipment manufacturer and you buy the fork tube from them. It'll be a little more expensive, but that's where most of them get bought from. The real market for aftermarket front-end fork tubes is because people in those days, and even today, like to convert them to choppers, where they extend the front end. So it now has a longer rake to it. And when they do that, it looks cool, but the manufacturer doesn't like it because they feel it's less safe. So they will not make an aftermarket front-end fork tube. So that was left to these 3 companies to do that. There were a lot of little garage shop operations all over the country that made 1 or 2 models for local dealers or whatever. But if you wanted to buy a variety and in volume, you had to buy from one of these 3. So I lucked out because I paid attention to what was going on with my competitors. And in Los Angeles, we had a competitor down in Orange County. That was my only real competitor. And one day, the salesperson who sells me some of my fork tube metal and the things that are my raw materials, he also supplies my competitor. And he says to me, he says, hey, have you heard what's going on and I'm just going to make up the name because I don't want to embarrass anybody. Have you heard what's going on with John's plant? And he says, I said, no. He says, he struck it rich. He's making these real spoked wheels for big American cars, and he's selling them like hotcakes. He can't fill his orders. I took that piece of information, and that registered with me because what if I take the business that he has that competes with me, I buy that from him, I give him the cash for it, okay? I know that sounds strange, me giving him the cash for it, right? But I give him the cash for it, okay? And then what he does is he takes that cash, no longer is it tied up in the business that competes with me where he makes a fairly low margin because it's competitive, and he puts it in his new business where he doesn't have any competition, where he has huge margins, and now he can fill orders and make a whole lot more money than he can competing with me. So I remember, how do we start this whole conversation? You give people what they want, but you got to know what they want. So it takes a little research sometimes to find out what that is. So I arrange a meeting with my competitor. I go down and I show him a set of figures. I said, look, I know I'm your competitor. You're never going to tell me your numbers. But I know you compete with me, so I know your numbers. And I know your margins. Here's what they probably are. And I know that your margins are a lot higher here. And if you were to take the business that competes with me and sell it to me, I'll give you cash for it. Okay, you can take that cash and you can put it in another business. He jumped at that. He said, that's fantastic. I loved it. Let's do it. All right, now your question is, how do I cash him out, right? Because I'm not giving him a down payment and then paying him over a long period of time. So I have to have a better way. But see, I had my first rodeo a couple of years before. Now it's my second rodeo. And I'm a little bit better rider than I was on my first one. I knew who bought from him. Okay, I knew all of the people who bought from him because they were the only ones who didn't buy from me. I went to those guys and I said, look, I'm planning to buy out my competitor over here. I want to make you a once-in-a-lifetime offer. You'll never see this again ever in life. But I have an inventory, because I know what his inventory is, because he's selling it to me, right? So he has to show me what his inventory is so I can make him the offer, and he now knows how much he's going to get. So part of the deal I made with him was to not only finance his machinery and equipment, not only finance his inventory. I don't finance his inventory. I sell it at a slight discount to all those distributors who will kill for the discount I'm going to give them, because it lets them go into the market and be more competitive selling the product than everybody else is. So they love that kind of an offer. So, and the funny part of it is I don't even have to wait until the stuff gets shipped to him to finance that. I can finance his order. I can finance his purchase order. So I now have all the money in my hands to cash my competitor out. He doesn't have to wait for anything. He just gets cashed out. So he loves it. I end up owning the second one in Los Angeles. Now, 2 in Los Angeles that are one in LA County, one in Orange County on the West Coast. Then there's one major competitor on the East Coast. A fork tube, if you're picturing it, it's a heavy product, right? So you can't ship it coast to coast, and the freight charges will eat you up. So you have to have a way of selling most of the stuff on the West Coast. It's only a rare order that somebody can't get filled any other way that they'll order from the East Coast. And the other plant, by the way, had the reverse. So now I have the only 2 manufacturers now that manufacture front-end fork tubes on the West Coast. And it's way less expensive than trying to order from the East Coast. So what do you think I do now that I own the only 2? I raise my prices, right? Because they still have to buy from me. They don't have a choice. Now, I can't raise them to the moon because there is a practical number where the East Coast company can compete with me. He'll just eat the freight charges, right? Okay, so what I did was I raised my prices, and that gives me bigger margins. Now, do I have any problem meeting my debt service now? No, because I got better margins. So now I have value added, right? I've added value to what was there before. And now I'm starting to feel really good, right? So the next thing I do is I say, okay, let me go buy my East Coast manufacturer, right? My competitor back there. So we were competitive all the way through to the Mississippi River. In other words, when he shipped west, he had to compete with me when I shipped east. So our pricing was still competitive in the middle of the country. I made him an offer to buy his company, and in his case, I paid him a premium, okay? I paid him a little extra for the company, and I could even be a little more generous on the terms for him because now I'm making plenty of money in the company that I have. So he sells me his company. Now I own the only 3 companies in the United States that make front-end fork tubes for motorcycles for the aftermarket. Every major distributor in the United States buys from me and has to buy from me. So if they're going to cover the custom market, this is a critical product, and they have to buy it from me. Now, if I was General Motors, the government would have shut me down because they said, you can't, this is anti-competitive, you can't do that, it's Sherman Antitrust Act. You don't worry about that when you're a small company. Nobody bothers you. Nobody thinks in those terms when you're a small company. So, all right, so now I got this, all right, we're all smart people here. What's going to be my next strategic move? You're going to hear this word more and more now, strategic move. What's my next strategic move? I own the best distribution system in the motorcycle parts industry. Everybody has to buy from me. They have no choice. So what's my next step? Thank you. You are a smart group. I like this. This is good. So now what industry do I know? I know this thing called metal fabrication. My thing is all built around metal fabrication. So we start buying other metal fabrication products for motorcycles, like luggage racks, like handlebar manufacturers, kickstand manufacturers. In other words, just think of all the different parts of a motorcycle. Okay, we start buying those up. And what are we looking for? See, we're looking for a specific type of company, not just any old company to buy, but we want certain things to be true. And the reason I'm explaining this to you is when you start to engage a plan like this, you build an avatar. What do you want the company that you target to look like? And that's what you go after. You don't just go after anything because you want something that's going to really add value. So you build up in your mind or on paper an avatar of what it is that you're actually looking for. So I know I'm looking for a specific profile of a company. I want a company that was started by engineers who designed a great product, know how to produce it, know how to keep their costs down, but they don't know how to sell. Okay? So they got this great product and it's not selling. Why? Because you see, with my distribution system, I can fix that problem in an instant. And on more than one occasion, I go to my distributors and I say, hey, guys, I just bought this company, and look at this great product they make. Look at these great handlebars. Look at these great kickstands. You should be handling my handlebars and my my crash bars and my tweak bars and all these other things that go into this custom bike. And they said, we do that, John Gordon, but we have these relationships with these other companies. And I said, well, it's my concern. My concern is how much you buying mine, and I'm only going to be selling my fork tubes to people who carry my full line. So you mean we can't buy fork tubes from you anymore if we don't handle you? And I said, that's right, because I'm only selling to distributors that handle my full line. So they thought about that for a few minutes, and they cannot afford not to have this product. There's no one else that can supply them with the volume and the quality that they need. So they all agree to start handling my other product lines. So now I'm selling everything that goes on a motorcycle that's made in metal. And I've taken my business from this $1 million sales company to a $2 or $3 million sales company to a $5 or $10 million sales company to a $17 to $20 million sales company. All because of the strategy and taking this one little tiny product in the marketplace and positioning myself so my distributors had to buy it from me. Couldn't get it elsewhere. And then I leveraged that into a complete product line that they then carry. But I helped them out. Remember? We don't want to force ourselves on people. We want people to want to do business with us. So I created a revolution in the way motorcycle parts were marketed. Okay, when in the day when I first did this, when you walked into a motorcycle shop and you were looking at buying parts, they were on shelves in a back room. Okay, and so you came in, you told the guy what you wanted, he went in the back room, he pulled out some stuff, and you started looking at stuff. we took and we packaged those parts in beautiful boxes with pictures and descriptions and created point-of-purchase displays so that instead of putting it in the back room, they put our products in the front room because they sold themselves. So I created value for my distributors. I didn't just use position power with them. I used personal power, the ability to get them to want to do business with me because I could give them something nobody else could. So, all right, so now I've got distributors that love me. They love handling our full product line, and we're going crazy with orders. And not long after that, somebody came to me out of the blue, and he was an officer with Grace Company. And it turned out that they were a conglomerate listed on the exchange, and they, at that time, owned another type of motorcycle parts company that specialized in plastics, fiberglass. So they made helmets, they made fairings, they made gas tanks. They made any kind of thing you would make out of plastic or fiberglass. And they offered me a decent price for my business when you looked at the value of my business as a standalone business. In other words, if you just took my profits and my growth, you could say it's worth so many dollars because this is what it produces in profit. Anyway, by the time that the deal was done, they gave me 3 times the value of my company. Why would they pay me? This is a strategic sale. Why would they pay me 3 times what my company's worth because of its profit? No, it's not. That's part of it. Thank you for that. It's worth more to them because they're a public company, okay? And because they're public, they take those earnings and they're worth a higher multiple on the exchange. But that wasn't the driving reason. Okay, distribution, okay? They knew if they bought my company, just like I took those distributors and brought them into a complete product line, they could then use my distribution system to take their products and triple and quadruple their existing distribution of their fiberglass products. So that's why they were willing to do that. So I ended up selling the company, and that was how I profited from it.
Gordon, can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Of course.
Participants, he's not just telling a story. About every 2 minutes, he's dropping the most amazing wisdom, and you are just listening. And I want to tell you that it is impossible for you to remember what he's saying. I want you to start taking notes. He is telling so many little pieces of wisdom in between, and you are not taking it down. This is when you should be taking notes. In between, he's telling a story. He's teaching by story. And in between, he's just talking about all these things. Like right now, one of the key things he mentioned was what? Hello, say the word. You start creating your own flip charts, the way we create flip charts. So I understand that a lot of us do not know how to take notes or how to learn like this, but I want you to just start listening as a court reporter, like I used to be, and listen to every word, and then he tells the story and he's doing the teaching. When I was on the phone with him and he was teaching, and he was telling me stories, I was on my computer just writing down, and I did tell him, I said, you'll hear some noise because I'm taking notes. I just kept putting all this wisdom so you can then apply that to your business or any business, okay? So I just want to make sure that you don't get tricked. Your mind doesn't go, oh, he's just telling stories. In the last 15 minutes, he has dropped all kinds of little jewels. And can I just, for 1 minute, if you don't mind, I'd like to get them on the table to get some support with their classmates and just go, what is some of the wisdom that you had heard? Turn to your classmates in your table, what are some of the wisdom? Take down some of those flip charts, and then you will go ahead, write them down, and then we're going to start taking notes differently. Thank you. They were just there thinking that they were listening to us. Another minute, please. Thank you. Okay, begin to finish up. Thank your teams. Give them a high five and just say, I love business. Come on, you guys. I love business. I love business. Thank you. All right, thank you. Keep going, Gordon.
Okay. I'm trying to speed through some of you'll notice I don't stick to exactly to the thing, because if I did, it would be like a memory thing. And this is all inside me. This is my life. I've lived all this stuff. So it's easier if I just be in the moment and just share it with you that way. And then when I need to, turn to one of the slides for perhaps a better visualization of it. This slide here, by the way, shows you the parts we made with the front end fork tubes, the kickstands, the luggage racks, seat backrests, things like that we talked about earlier. All right, and then this gets into, okay, so anyway, so those were some of the products that we made. And then I get into already what we did to sell the company. Okay, wait, what was it that you wanted to? I can send you some of the stuff, okay, so that you don't have to just write it down, because that's all important stuff, because you're not limited, obviously, to just buying a competitor. You can buy complementary product line companies. You can buy companies that have a strategic advantage to you. Now, we're doing something that I'm going to talk about in one of my other sessions. It's a word you're going to hear called strategic aggregation. Strategic aggregation. And it's the art of, taken to the ultimate length, it's the art of cross-marketing. Okay, it's what we're doing in today's market that is totally disruptive to the marketplace. Whatever marketplace strategic aggregation finds its way into, whatever the normal business is, they're gone. They cannot compete. You'll see that in my next illustration. But one of the things that you might want to achieve, might want to acquire, are businesses that you can cross-market with. They already have a big database where their customers are very much like your customers, right? They sell a different product than you do, and they sell it to a database that's very similar in demographics, in the interests of those people, to your company. So you buy that company, and then you combine it with yours. Now you just doubled your database for your company, and now you cross-market the two of them's database to your other company. So now you're put yourself in a position where you've acquired customers that currently buy from a similar product that will now buy from you, but then your customers would buy that as well. So you've exploded your customer capacity beyond what you had before, just by the acquisition. So whatever you paid for that acquisition because it was worth so much because of its profits, even if you paid a little bit of a premium for that company, you make that up in spades. Okay? And so that's the way you start thinking now of how do I add to my business? How do I make it more valuable than it was when it was two separate pieces? Okay, we went through the why sell, I think, because I was able to sell it for a multiple of what it was worth to a strategic buyer. Here's an important part, okay? So for me, in my business world, what's important is, how do I get into a business? I use financial leverage. I use the assets and cash flow of the business to get me into it where I don't need my own capital to do it. And if I use any capital at all, it's for little, small, incidental expenses that are just grease to getting it all to come together. And you do that by buying someone else's business. How do I build it up and build it up quickly? Financial leverage. I do that by buying other people's businesses and then adding them to the one that now I already have. And how do I get out with a big score? Okay, I get out with a big score by a reverse acquisition. I'm now selling my business, but I don't sell it to just anybody. Excuse me, can I move this in a little bit because I keep hitting it with my foot? Thank you. I don't sell it to just anybody. Remember, I mentioned this word before, avatar. When you want to buy a business, you create an avatar of the perfect business that you want to buy. Because if you don't create that avatar, it's like a target, right? If you're not shooting at something, what are you going to hit? Nothing, right? Because you're not shooting at anything, right? So you've got to know what you're going after, and we do that by creating a criteria for that business. How big is it going to be? What field is it going to be in? What's its products going to be in? What's its specialty going to be? What do we want to be the strong suit of that business? What do we want to be their weak suit? Okay, in my case, I always wanted the weak suit to be marketing. I always wanted the strong suit to be good engineers in the company, great product, great quality, good cost control, all that stuff, but they can't sell, okay? Because that was what I could fix the minute that I acquired the company. All right, now I'm going to share with you another little thing that I did too that really helped me. This is a little bit of an aside. People ask me, how in the world do you pick businesses? And I did this consistently for about 30 years. How did you consistently pick businesses that were going to become winners? And how is it that you seem to sell companies just before when they're ready to plateau out and decline? How did you time that? Because timing is an important thing too. I had a special thing that you don't have. At least you don't have it for the most part, but they're probably an equivalent. It's just I haven't taken the time to go find it. And the thing that I had that enabled me to do this is something called the baby boomer. Okay, and I had the good fortune of being 2 years older than the first real baby boom. I noticed when I went through school, for example, and I went to kindergarten, classes are small. I went to first grade, classes are small. Kindergartens are getting bigger. And by the time I was in third grade, they had mobile camps set out and the mobile homes set out in the back that they had to make into classrooms because they couldn't handle all the students that hit an unprepared school system for all these boomers. And then I watched as I was a kid that whatever the boomers needed, it was always in short supply. Never enough of it, okay? Then as I got a little older, I watched as the boomers got to a certain age where they didn't do this anymore, like the record industry, for example. There were a time when the boomers were the big record buyers, and they were in their teens, right? But then when they were in their 20s and 30s, that group wasn't buying records anymore. So that industry took a big nosedive during that period of time. So what I did was I said to myself, okay, what do I like that the boomers right behind me are going to like? And then what am I not doing anymore that the boomers, when they get to be my age, aren't going to do anymore? So now I knew when products would rise, when they would plateau out, and then when they would go down, because they were tied to consumption that was built into the baby boom generation. And the baby boomers never had enough of what they wanted. They were always having to pay premiums for stuff. And the people that came after them, always found surpluses on the market for whatever it is that they wanted, okay? So once you get patterns are the biggest thing in life. I look for patterns, because those patterns have a way of repeating themselves over and over again. And once you get onto a pattern, you've found a gold mine, okay? Because you now know how to structure your business. You now know how to time your business so that you're in at the right times, you're out at the right times, that you have the opportunity to buy right and sell right. All right, so the way I got out was with a reverse acquisition. All right, I'm going to go through a little bit of this stuff here because I want to get to something else where I'm going to tell you what two of our graduates did, which will blow your socks off. All right. We had two graduates of one of our training programs that ended up buying a $60 million hospital. And the interesting part is they were two orderlies at the hospital. Now, they were not normal orderlies, okay? These guys were doctors in the making, okay? They were bright guys. They were looking to get experience in hospitals so that by the time they became doctors, they knew what different parts of the hospital experienced, not just doctors in the hospital. But anyway, they're at this hospital, okay? And so anyway, they're basically there. And again, because they were medical students, though, also, they had no cash, no credit, no credentials to buy a hospital, right? And it's a $60 million hospital. Now, again, in these numbers, that's probably a $100 and $200 million hospital today, give or take a few bucks. All right? So I just want to put numbers in perspective for you. All right. Now, I'm going to get up at the front of the room again because we're going to have a little fun here. Okay. What I want you to do is to pretend this meeting that we're having right now, that this is a staff meeting of a hospital. Okay? And I'm the head administrator, and you're all doctors, nurses, all the staff of the hospital. And I've called you together to let you know that the hospital here is in serious financial trouble. There are 3 other great hospitals in this area. We all compete for patients, and as a result, there aren't enough patients to keep us all busy. And we have come to the realization that if things don't change for us, which they're not likely to, in the next 2 months, we're going to run out of money, and we will have to close the hospital. And we wanted everybody to be on notice of that so that you could start making plans and preparations for however that was going to affect you financially. That was the meeting, okay? Now, put yourself in the place of most of the people who are at that meeting. They're programmed to respond a certain way. And that way is, oh my gosh, the hospital's going to close. I'm going to lose my job. How am I going to get my kids through school? How am I going to pay for my house payments? And their mind goes to all the negatives that's going to happen when that hospital closes. But sitting in that audience were 2 orderlies who were on their way to becoming doctors whose mindset was totally different. They saw this as an opportunity. And now I'm going to share with you what the opportunity was and how they took advantage of it. Okay, and let me fill in around the bad news because it's written up there. The hospital was operating at 45% of capacity, obviously losing money. Can't afford it. It was owned by a nonprofit. Couldn't afford to run it anymore. And if they can't find a buyer, is what they were looking for, in the next 60 days, they were going to run out of money and close. And that was some substance of the meeting. Okay, and this was the thought that went through your minds. Again, I get a little ahead of these slides sometimes. Just let me just get to where we are now. Okay, entrepreneurs thrive on crisis. I'd like you to remember that as an important statement because crisis doesn't mean what people think it means. It just means a big change. That's all it means, okay? And you can either see the change positively or you can see it negatively. And the choice is really yours. Everything in life has an opposite, right? Good, bad, up, down, evil, saintly, love, hate. You can go on and on. The world is full of exact opposites, okay? And I'm going to cover something tomorrow that will show you the common genesis of those. You're going to find that interesting too. But the whole idea here is that there's an opportunity in that crisis. An entrepreneur with ingenuity starts to think about the use of know-how and know-who to turn the crisis into an opportunity. All right, now, in this time, we used a limited partnership, but today, if I were doing that same transaction today, I would use an LLC. Okay, it would be a manager-managed LLC. 2 types of LLCs. One's a member LLC, and the other's a manager-managed LLC, and the other one's a member-managed LLC. A member-managed LLC, the members all vote and all take responsibility for running it. A manager-managed LLC, the manager makes all the decisions. It's up to him or her to decide what to do. Okay? So there's just a difference in governance of the 2 different types. We would use a manager-managed so that we can have support people involved in it, but there's only one group or one person actually running it. In this case, we used a limited partnership where we were the general partner and the other participants were limited partners. I'm not going to go into the technical aspects of limited partnership beyond what I did, but at least if you don't already now, you do know about them, and these are the vehicles that we would use. In a limited partnership, you have investors that put up the money. They share in the profits. They share in liquidation value if it's sold off someday. They certainly get tax advantages, but they have no say. That's why they're limited partners. And they want to be limited partners because in a limited partnership, if they have say, they can be liable for the losses. If they're limited partners and have no say, they're insulated from any personal loss, okay? So that's why they want to be those things. On the other side, you have the general partner. Now, we always tell people if you're forming a limited partnership and you're going to be the general partner, you will never, ever be a personal general partner. Why? Because then you personally have all the liability if the thing goes wrong. You want to set up a corporation. That becomes the limited partner's general partner, and you're going to be the president and CEO of the corporation, and that's how you're going to control the limited partnership, but you're not going to expose yourself to personal risk. Okay, so the general partner generally doesn't put up any money. They have all the say. They get paid a fee to put it together. They get paid a fee to manage it. They share in the profits because they're going to get a share of this whole thing as well, and they're going to get a share in liquidation when it's sold off someday. And they get all that because they're the folks who put it all together. Okay, now, how do we use this to solve the orderlies problem? So the orderlies learned to form one of these things at one of our events, and they now knew what they were going to do and how they were going to use what they learned to do this. We taught them a marketing concept called simultaneous marketing and raising investor capital. Again, this is something you should write down. It's a major technique on how to raise money, and it's called simultaneous marketing and raising investor capital. And you'll hear in our organization, you'll hear people walking in a hallway and saying SMERIC, and you'll wonder what the heck is a SMERIC? That's a SMERIC. All right, and there are 2 questions that we train people to ask to see if an opportunity is appropriate for this strategy called simultaneous marketing and raising investor capital. And the first question is, who controls the customer flow to the business? All right, a hospital is a business, right? Okay, and who controls the customer flow to the hospital? How do patients get to a specific hospital? It's from their doctor, right? The doctor says, I'm on staff at the ABC hospital. If I'm going to operate on you, you go down and you check into the ABC hospital, and I'll take it out for you. Okay, so it's doctors who control the customer flow. And then the next question is, do they have money to invest? Today, doctors are not quite as rich as they used to be. But again, when we did this, they were rolling in money, just rolling in money. And they literally had money burning holes in their pocket for what do they do with it, and we helped them out a little bit. So when the orderlies learned the hospital purchase is a candidate for SMERIC is because the doctor was the logical person to bring business in, and they have money to invest. Now, why does this technique work? All right, first of all, let's talk about how he did it. Okay, they set an appointment to meet with the owner and the management of the hospital, and they stated their objective. They get an answer to two important questions, okay? What is the income of the hospital now, and what are its expenses? But then they ask, and obviously from that they can compute the profit and loss. They ask how many sources of customers, and I put it in generics there so you can see whatever business it is, the same questions. So in this case, it's how many patients, how many sources of these patients do they have? In this case, how many doctors? And I don't remember the number offhand, but it was, let's say it's 40, okay? So at 40 doctors, that's why they're not succeeding, because they just don't have enough doctors referring patients in. And what percent of the operating capacity are they using now? Okay, so it was like 45% or something like that. The numbers are up here. All right, and then you probe the possibilities. What if we could add another 20 doctors? What would happen? Okay, whoa, if you could add 20 doctors, our beds would be filled to this level. We would be making this much more money. We might not yet be breaking even, but at least we'd be close. Okay, and then what would happen if we take it to 95% of capacity? And you get those answers. What would be the profit at 95% capacity? Then they use that information to draft a 3-page business plan, okay? 3-page business plan is, here's what the hospital does now with its 40 doctors or 45 doctors, whatever it had. But if we could add X number of doctors, it would go to this level. And if we added Y number of doctors, it goes to this level. And at 95%, we would have another 60 doctors or 70 doctors who would be operating at this hospital. And with that, we'd be at 95%. This hospital would be making a ton of money. All right, so now, and then basically the business plan compares what it is today with what it could be if it solved this one problem of getting more doctors. All right, so now if you got that in your mind as to what that little plan looks like, these guys form the limited partners, and now their goal is to get enough limited partners to bring the customer flow to 95%, okay? And the ideal partner for them is doctors. Now, rather than truck on through some of these statements on here, they need to raise money from doctors. So what they do is they talk to some of the doctors that are in the hospital now. And they ask them, who, in your opinion, are some of the better doctors out there in your field? Okay, and they start writing them down. They don't work here. They work at the other hospitals. So eventually they comprise a list of doctors that are now working in the other hospitals, the other two, that are great doctors with great patient flows that they want to bring over to this hospital. So what they're going to do is they're going to set up an investment that a doctor can make for $100,000 and become one of 70 buyers that are going to buy this hospital. And the business plan is showing the doctor, if we have a new addition of 70 doctors, here's how much money the owners are going to make. Now, the question I'd like to ask you is, if you're one of those doctors, do you have any discomfort with owning a share of a hospital? No, you'd be pretty comfortable with that. You know how hospitals work. You know what they do and how they make money and all that stuff. Now, what if that hospital was going to have 70 new doctors, all who were part owners of the hospital, all of whom would do what once they were an owner of that hospital? They're going to go on staff there, right? They're going to start telling their patients, you want me to operate, you go to this hospital, and I'll do what I do. It's a good hospital. Nothing wrong with the hospital. It just didn't have enough patients. So what they were able to do was to get doctors to start agreeing to become one of the owners based on their business plan. Now, the first 2 or 3 that they talked to were a little tough because it looks like, who are you? What do you do? But they finally got enough conversation going that they got 2 or 3 of those doctors to realize that this was a great idea, okay? And what do you think those 2 or 3 doctors did? Call the other doctors. And by the time another couple of weeks had gone by, they had all 70 with signatures on them for doctors to put up $100,000 each. Because they could all look at the business plan. They could all look at each other and say, if we're the new owners, this place is going to sail. The person who controls the customer flow can make that investment with no risk, okay? See, if you and I were approached by these guys and they said, look, we want you to put up money so we can buy the hospital, your question would be, where the patient's going to come from, right? How do I know you can run this hospital? How do I know it's going to work? But the doctors don't ask that question because they can look at this and know it's going to work. They know exactly how they're going to solve this problem. So I want you to see the power of a strategy called simultaneous marketing and raising of capital. Whoever controls the customer flow to the business is a perfect partner because for them there's virtually no risk. They know when they sign the deal, they'll be pushing enough new business into that to make their investment work fabulously well. Okay? So again, it's how do we give people what they want? How do we make it so that there is less risk for them? in the process. All right, so anyway, again, I love this question. This is what the orderlies actually asked the doctors. And it was basically, Dr. Joe, is there any doubt in your mind that when you and these 70 other or 69 other doctors become the new owners of this hospital and it will operate at 95% capacity and earn these incredible profits? And all of them would shake their head. No, there's no doubt in my mind this is what happened. It's a key question that closed the deal for them. Okay, this is just a quick surmise of the numbers, and I don't like to get too caught up in numbers other than the fact that they show the illustration. These guys raised $100,000 from 70 doctors. That's $7 million. The company that owned it had put a lot of money into the hospital and also had a big mortgage on it. And so there was a $44 million liability of the seller that was owed by the existing owners of the hospital. The deal is that the new guys would assume the $44 million liability, pay $4 million in cash to the sellers, and use $1 million for working capital, and then they would take the other $2 million that they raised and they would use that to pay fees back to themselves for putting the whole deal together. Having no money, they walked away with $2 million in their pocket, and the doctors put up all the money to make it happen, okay, and all very comfortably, very happy to be in this deal, okay? And the reason that this is important is that's not even the big money they make here, okay? So again, I'm going through some of the logic behind some of the pieces here, which I don't want to take time today because it would just take too much time to get into some of this stuff. All right, so there's $4 million going to the seller. Now, why was this hospital, they had invested close to $60 million in this hospital? They're going to take a big loss on this. But it's not as big a loss as they're going to take if they don't do the deal, okay? Because they're going to get stuck with that $44 million loan that they're going to have to pay off. And once it goes into liquidation, that hospital's not going to get $4 million for it. They're highly motivated to do this deal, highly motivated. And they get out from under the debt, they're happy campers. Okay, so now they had $5 million used to purchase the hospital, $7 million raised, the other $2 million went to them as a fee, but that wasn't the big money that they made. So in addition to the $2 million fee for putting the deal together, the general partners also get $300,000 a year for management, okay? So they're now employed by this, and they're getting a paycheck in the form of $300,000 a year for their management services. That's another $6 million that they make over 20 years. I just wanted to point that out. Okay, they also get 30% of the profit. They're the general partner. The doctors who put up the money, they get 70%, but these guys get 30%. So they're very profitable. There's more millions there for them, okay? And also, someday when that hospital is sold, it's going to bring in, even if it just brings in its value then, where the mortgages are paid down, everything's paid off, even that liquidation or sale, if it just maintains its present value, is worth another $18 million to them. What happens here is they were able to create not just the front-end fee, but tremendous amounts of equity in it and income from it as well. Learning how to put these kind of deals together. If you're brain shopping right now for what approaches am I going to use to do things, and you're saying to yourself, this whole idea of forming these general partnerships or limited partnerships sounds like a good idea. I can't teach you definitively today how to do that. I can get you, but the process for you is, all right, maybe I ought to go out and learn a little more about these general partnerships and how I can put them together or how I can use LLCs to do them. You now have the concept, hopefully clearly in your head, of how you could pursue these things. Now, there are certain keys to raising money. These are things that they're short, you want to write them down. Okay, they're the keys to raising money. And the two illustrations that I gave you today, how I bought my first business and how the orderlies bought this $60 million hospital, they had the same keys. Okay, every deal I've ever done has those 4 keys. And if you don't meet the 4 keys, it's tough to get the deal funded. If you meet the 4 keys, it gets a whole lot easier. One is you go to a predisposed source. Okay, what does that mean? It means if you need a lot of money, you don't go to mom and dad, you don't go to your friends, you don't go to your relatives, you don't go to people who they're not sure if they really believe in you and your idea or not. Okay, you go to sources that are already predisposed to do it. Now, when I went to my lenders, are asset-based lenders predisposed to loan against assets? Yes, they are. It's their business. That's what they do. When I went to the bank for the swing loan, even though they didn't want to loan it to me at first, that's what banks do. They make loans to people, and they just want to get paid with the interest that's owed to them. But you already have their ear because you're talking about something they want to do. So it's very important that you go to a predisposed source. The second thing is you have to find a way to offer them a higher than usual return. If you're just offering them the same return they can get from anybody else, then why should they put their money with you? Okay? Sometimes they will, but if you find a way to offer them a little bit more, then they really get very interested in you. And one of the ways you offer them more, by the way, is you do bigger deals. Okay? If you do $1 million or $2 million deals today, you can't find lenders who will back you. Why? Because they can't afford to make a $2 million loan anymore. The administrative costs, the due diligence costs, all the costs that it takes to put that loan on the books are the same for a $1 million loan as they are for a $50 million loan. They can't charge you enough interest to make money on that loan. up your game. Okay? A lot of times people are afraid to up their game because they think they're not worth it. They don't have the experience. I hearken back to my days of buying my first business. I didn't have any experience. I was gifted, in fact, that the seller took me under his wing, saw me as a son that he never had, and trained me how to run the business and gave me a PhD in how to run a business in the 3 or 4 years that followed my purchase of that business. Because he not only stayed with me for 6 months and taught me everything, he stayed with me another 6 months and wasn't full-time with me anymore, but he was there enough to correct me on anything I did wrong. And I met with him continually for the next three or 4 years. Anytime I had any kind of an issue or a crisis or a question, I wanted to trade on his wisdom. He'd done this for 50 years. He knew something about this. And I had that all available to me, okay? Predisposed source, high return, okay, and then no or low risk. How did I show the asset-based lenders that they had low or no risk? They got assets as collateral that they could sell and get their money back, right? So that's how they do it. I didn't have to show them that. They already knew that, but that's what made it low risk for them. How did I show the banker that he was going to have low risk? I set everything up in a double escrow, and I put all the money in his hands, right? Because that's the next one down there. Lender, investor controls. Okay, you put all the money in their hands. You don't have to touch it until it goes to its final places. They don't have to worry what you're going to do with what when, because everybody's repaid back by the time you got yours, okay? When you structure it that way, everybody's happy. Okay, so those are keys, and you saw those keys in the 2 transactions that I gave you today. The doctors had no risk in this deal. Why? Because they knew they could bring those patients in. Okay, so to them it wasn't risk. You and I would be a risky investment, but not for them. Okay, were they predisposed to put money up for a hospital? Yeah, they like hospitals. They'd be very keen about owning a piece of the hospital. Think of the prestige. I'm not just a doctor here. I'm an owner. Okay, so it gives them a whole other sense of status that money can buy them in addition to the good return on the investment. Okay, and it was a high return because the business plan showed them with all those doctors owning it and bringing their patients there, how much they each earn. So in all of the examples I gave you, you saw those 4 keys. You didn't maybe realize them, but you saw those same 4 keys. Okay, so our strategy was simultaneous marketing and raising investor capital. The vehicle was a limited partnership, could be an LLC. Sweat capital, that's your effort, that's what it takes. Results, massive business growth. So that's what all this is all about. And the bonanza that you're all facing today is right now there are 2 million businesses that will be for sale over the next 8 years as boomer owners retire. That should be $12 trillion transfer of wealth. I don't know why it says 2, but it should say 12. Many will be liquidated for lack of qualified buyers. It's a feast for those who with acquisition know-how and know who. And that's the end. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, okay, thank you. I can only handle so much applause. Thank you. All right, now, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer as many questions as you got. Yes. Now, can we get a mic for this lady? Thank you.
Thank you for speaking. That was wonderful. So I just had a question about when you said with the person who controls the customer, controls the finance, the money, put all the control in their hands. Does that also go along with you're looking for VC funding, also giving them 100% control? Is that no different?
That's different.
Different.
Okay. And let me explain why it's different.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome. It was a great question, by the way. There are 2 types of giving away control. The kind of control we're talking about giving away is the holding and exchanging of the money. Okay, that's different because there's going to be an end to that. It's when the transaction closes. Then control is in your hands, right? Okay, that's different than you get a VC to fund your deal, but they want 70% of the company, and you're working for them. That's a big difference. Okay. Now, a lot of times people think for that kind of funding that I need, I have to go to a VC because I'm too early stage for all of these things to happen, right? Okay, I think we're going to get some competition here. All right, and my answer to that is nonsense. Okay, what did I just show you how to do? I showed you how to buy a business that's similar to, synergistic with what it is you want to do. The assets are all there. The cash flows are all there. Everything's there. You buy that business, and now you divert some of that business's resources to now doing what you want to do. You bring that project to a state where now when you go after investors for that, it's a no-brainer. You've got proof of concept. You've got everything you need to show an investor that they're going to make their money, not that they have to take this high risk to make their money. Okay, so it's a different approach. It's a different way to get there. And maybe the company you're buying is a company that will have built-in customers for what it is that you actually want that VC to fund. So you're way ahead of the game. In other words, from now on, you are not myopically looking at your project. You're looking at the broader scope of what's that project embedded in that I can use to finance this and restructure it in a way that it works for me. Because I hate to see entrepreneurs give up control of their companies. Why? Because the VCs will never do as good a job of working through those issues as you will. Now, I will say this, that a good VC will support you with good financial know-how that helps you to accomplish your goals. So I don't mind VCs that have interest in my company, meaning a seat on a board, something that gives them insight into the company. And I agree sometimes that I'll allow them to put the controller into the company, the chief financial officer, because it's their money. They want to watch it. Okay, I just want to make sure that I have creative control. Okay, that I'm the one who sets the next steps and the next steps as to where we're going. And I'll listen to them and give weight to them when it's, okay, this way is too expensive, but here's another way we can do it that the cost works. Okay, I don't mind having that kind of help because it's helping me get there. Okay, but if I'm the visionary, I have a belief. Okay, I believe that everybody that's in this room today, everybody, you're here for a reason. You were born to do something, and it's probably something great, or you wouldn't be here today. And that's something great that you are the only person that can do it. It's your vision, it's your experience that's unique, it's your credentials that are unique, it's your skill sets, your core competency that is unique to you. You're the only person that has that exact set. And the reason that you have this vision is a function of all those pieces, and nobody else has it. And at the end of the day, you are the keeper of that vision. And if you give that away to somebody else, then you are no longer in control of that vision. So my goal is to help entrepreneurs keep control of that vision as long as possible, forever if possible, because they're the only ones who are going to really see it through to the end and see it in what it can really accomplish. Okay, any other questions? Yes. Mike?
Thank you for your talk. The two examples that you provided were generally pretty heavy asset rich and product driven. And I know a lot of the people in the creator service industries as well.
Great.
That have got low asset pool.
Great question.
Mainly goodwill.
All right, let me give you two answers, okay? One is the answer you don't want to hear right now, but it's coming in one of my next sessions. We're going to get into service businesses. Okay, but let's stay with this for just a moment. Be the assets large or small, the upfront cash that I usually will give a person for their business is directly tied to the cash assets. Everything else comes out of either seller financing or some kind of deferred compensation mechanism where they get paid out of that goodwill demonstrates it produces. Okay, there's no, oh, you've got this goodwill. Goodwill can disappear like that. Okay, you have an owner of a business and he knows every one of his clients. He knows them by name. He knows the date their kids were born. He knows everything about them. They do business with him because they love him. Now, he walks out the door after he sells you the business. How much is your goodwill worth? Okay? So what I base the whole process on is, in the case of a service business, the key pricing element is retention. How much of their business is retained after the deal closes, and that's what determines the amount they ultimately get. So the part that I pay up front is usually tied to assets. But tomorrow, either tomorrow or the day after, I don't know which one comes up which, I'm going to take you into service businesses, and I'm going to show you just exactly how you do the same type of thing with them, and just as equally as well. Yes. I'm sorry. No, you were just shaking your head. Okay. Yes.
I really enjoyed your talk on the webinar, and I was really excited about the concept of purchasing the buildings and putting really great projects in there. I had visions for that when I was 19, and I live in Australia. Do you have any contacts in Australia that I could talk to that would help me understand that structured finance better?
Okay, the answer is two things, okay? Everything we do today is designed around 21st century technology, which is great communication technology. We do everything by webinars, for example. And we do a lot in Australia, UK, and the whole swath in between. In 1983, I had 6,000 or 7,000 feet of office space and 25, 30 employees that worked for us. 3 years later, I had the same amount of feet of space, but it was empty. And everybody had been converted to a home-based business that they not only worked for me, but they worked for themselves. They worked for other people as well. And what they did as a result of that is they did a better job for me with no fixed overhead, okay? And they were making more money because they could do it with not only me, but with other people. And I supported the whole process. We bought them their computers at that time. We set up the desks in their home. And then, of course, as the internet became key, then that whole process got much, much better. Today, we don't have a single employee. We do tens of millions of dollars worth of business, no employees. Every team we put together is ad hoc. It's done for that project. It's done because we have people all over the world who work with us, love us, and are happy to be part of what we're doing. And they're doing their thing, and everybody's slotted into what their core competency, skill set, time availability. So the flexible world we live in today, if you can cater to that flexible world, you got an immense labor pool out there that would love working with you, and you eliminate all your fixed overhead. The thing that kills businesses is fixed overhead. Why? Because business is not a straight line. I don't care what business you're in, it doesn't go straight up. Okay, there are cycles. It goes up, and then it comes down, and then it goes up, and then it comes down. And your problem is surviving the valleys, okay? Because if you are building for growth and doing it by tying in fixed overhead, then when the valley comes, the fixed overhead stays there, okay? And you run out of money. okay? But if you fix all of your compensation to be geared to results, so everything's based on results. It's results compensation. You do this, you make that happen, here's what you get, okay? And you can give people more that way because you're not burdened with all the fixed overhead. So they get paid better, they have flexible time, the people who can't deliver won't work for you, so that's actually a good thing, okay? And the folks who can deliver want to work for you because they're going to get paid more, okay? So the better people will actually respond to that as opposed to the negative. Now, the only time that isn't true is there are certain industries where the big guys out there, whether they're the Googles of the world or whatever, offer their initial employees who are just coming out of school such outrageous sums of money that you're not going to compete in that market. But you don't need to, because guess what? Those people who go to work for them, a lot of them, after 2, 3, 4, 5 years, get very discouraged with the big company employer, even as good as Google or some of those companies are, okay? I'll give you one example. If you have a conservative background and you're working for Google, you won't last there 2 years, okay? It doesn't matter how good you are. The political background of that company is such that they'll drum you out, okay? Understand the world you live in. There are a lot of opportunities out there that even though guys are bigger than you, can pay more than you can, there are niches that you can play where you get the benefit of what they do, and there's that niche that they can't play in, and that's where you farm. That's where you bring in what you need for your company. Those are the things you're looking for. An entrepreneur is always looking for that strategic advantage. He's always looking for that niche that nobody else is serving. You're always looking for what's making other people unhappy where they're at, and how do you organize your company so that's an asset for you, not a liability for you. It's a great world out there, and you just got to be facile in your thinking. You've got to be willing to move with what, and you don't go into things with a fixed idea, but it has to be this way, because then you're locking yourself into the big corporations' challenge, which is they are locked into a certain way, and they can't move. And the advantage is you're like the little bee buzzing around the big crow, right? And the big crow flies where it flies, but the little bee can go anywhere it wants to, and that crow ain't going to catch that little bee anyway, ever. Okay, why? Because it's got big wings and a big body, and it can only move in a certain amount. That little bee can go anywhere, okay? And part of it is being realistic with who you are, what your short stroke, what your short suits are, and playing around your short suits, because you don't want your short suits playing against somebody else's strengths. Okay, you want your strong suits playing against their weaknesses, and it's up to you to find them. And that's part of how you structure your company. Okay, any other questions? Oh, okay. All right, give that man a microphone.
I was wondering how you deal with the ethical issues concerning conflict of interest of doctors owning hospitals to which they refer patients, and their allegiance is more to their bottom line than to the patient's well-being.
Great question. No, it's a great question. Part of my problem in life is I have a very long timeline. And this particular transaction was done before there were rules in place that would deal with those ethical questions. So we didn't have to deal with that question. So dealing with it today, we might not have the same capability to do this today that we did then. But again, my reason for showing this to everybody is not so you guys can go out and buy hospitals and put doctors together. That's not the reason. The reason is so you see the concept of simultaneous marketing and raising of investor capital, and that you apply that to the businesses at hand that you're looking to do. Because the questions are the same. Who controls the flow of customers to the business, and do they have money to invest? Today, the doctors would actually fail on 2 counts. Okay, one is they can't control the flow of the patients to the hospital, not the way they could then. And the second is they don't have the money to invest today that they did then.
But ethics are independent of laws.
Yes, that's true. Okay, but you have to forgive me. I love to stay on the ethical and legal side of things. But you're absolutely right. And my issue here is not that someone should go out and do this and deal with any ethical issues. It's that they understand the concept of simultaneous marketing and raising of investor capital. It's very powerful as a tool to raise money.
Okay, so what we want you to do very quickly, we have about 15 minutes before we're going to lunch. What I want you to do is talk to your class, to your group, and then see if you can come up with any questions that you may have, even if you're looking, even if you're not thinking about buying a business or selling your business, that may be relevant to ask him. And then what we can do is we can put it on a sheet of paper, maybe if you have a blank one, and then ask some questions. Then we turn it over to him, and he can answer them tomorrow. Okay, so just talk it over with your teams, and then just see if you have any questions. Write them clearly. Let's take about 10 minutes to do this, and then we can turn this over to him, and then tomorrow he'll be able to serve us a little bit more. Okay? Okay, so let's give Gordon a huge hand. Woo! Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So go ahead and take 10 minutes. If we could time that, Reggie, please. I would appreciate that. What questions do you have for Gordon that you can write on a piece of paper, somebody with clean handwriting? Graduates, can you all get on the corner? All the graduates, go on the corner. Graduates, quiet. Don't put your stuff away. I just need you there. You can go.